Hi there, folks. Welcome along to what we hope is going to be episode 1 of a new long-running variety sports network series of the NFL, but slightly different because it comes with a UK accent. Joining me today, I've got Connor, as he says, the King Con 17. Connor is a long-suffering Jets fan from up in Sunderland. Nice to meet you, Connor. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for being my guinea pig.
Yeah, no worries. Happy to be here.
Before we dive in, I want to get into training camps, all the hot topic of the fantasy football. But right now in the UK, there's kind of been like the major talking point recently about the international series and the tickets for all the games down at Wembley and stuff. Now, I don't know if those who are maybe listening and don't know, the NFL are a bit clever with the way they sell their tickets in the UK. They sell them in batches and season tickets and stuff, but they released the single ticket games for the Packers Giants game, which this year is the biggest one, the biggest seller. They went up for sale at 9:30 in the morning, according to all official sort of websites. Logged in at 9:30, and you found you were in a queue of about 600,000 people. I don't know if you even tried to get tickets this year, Connor. Did you see anything about that? Have you had that issue last year? I suppose you may have suffered from that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't tried this year. Unfortunately, the funds won't allow. But I remember it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because the single ticket's a lot harder to get. Season ticket is much easier to get your hands on. When I last went down, that's how we did it. Season ticket went to the 3 or 4 games that were available across Wembley and Twickenham, and we found it quite easy. So I've never actually had to try and get a single ticket, but from everything I'm seeing and hearing, it was a bit of a stressful experience for a lot of people. And the difficulty is as well is, you're Niners fan, I'm a Jets fan, and we want to see the NFL in the UK. So regardless of it is, we're going to try and buy tickets. So those people who are actually fans of the Packers,
the actual
friends, they're going to potentially miss out seeing their team come across the pond. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to go see the Jets last year, which would have been great to see. Again, it's tough. Bought a house, so it kind of eats your money, doesn't it? So it was a bad time for the Jets to come across. But yeah, it doesn't seem to have gone across too well. But that's the nature of the beast, I suppose. It's popular. It's really, really sort of popular now in the UK, and people are wanting to go and see it. So it's kind of, how do you win, really?
How do you win? How do you lose? I think, as you say, the nature of the beast, because it was the Packers' first time coming over, and the Packers do have like a massive following. It was always going to be more tricky, as you say. Buying season tickets, it's an outlay, obviously, because you've got to pay for all the games, and as a fan of the sport, you might want to go and see them. But if it's not really your team, you're a bit like, it's a big outlay just in case, to have a seat for next year, which is kind of how a lot of season tickets get sold. So yeah, it was a bit of a shame, and a lot of people upset about it. A lot of what I found really upsetting was how quickly Viagogo suddenly had tickets from its face value tickets that were going for 57, 80 quid or whatever else. Suddenly you look on Viagogo and they're on there for 800, 900 pounds, whilst people are still in the queue to buy tickets. It's just insane that you think, how can Ticketmaster and the NFL, I suppose, really allow that to happen? That yes, it's a supply demand thing, but surely they're impacting on real fans who want to go and see their team.
100%, absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned, I'm a Sunderland fan, live in Sunderland, and we had Ed Sheeran perform here a month or two ago. And one of the things he does with his tickets is, you can't resell for higher than the face value, and you can't resell apart from a couple of certain sites that he's allowed and kind of okayed it. And that's the approach I really should be taking this, so people aren't being taken advantage of, because people are going to want to go see it. They'll have missed out on tickets, and they'll spend the money because it's potentially, it's the first time the Packers have come across. It's potentially a once in a lifetime thing. They may never come across again. Aaron Rodgers may never see him again over here. So it's that's how you've got to kind of police it almost in terms of that, so that people aren't getting their eyes gouged out and spending so much 2, 3, 4 times the amount of what a single ticket should be going for, because it's a great day out when you're down there, and it already costs quite a lot. For example,
travel
£100 on the train to get down there for return minimum. And you've got if you're staying over, there's a night there potentially, food and drink on the day. You're going to want to buy merchandise, so like it adds up. And then if you put in, people spending 300, 400 quid on just a single ticket as well, just to go and see it.
Yeah.
It's so expensive, and it just needs to be policed a bit better.
I think you're right. I think that's where it comes into. It's you say people make an event of it. You know, the UK, they travel from far and wide across the UK to come to London to do these events because they are fans and they want to see it. But it's a cost that comes with that, with travel and staying over, because London is the most expensive place in the UK to come and, you know, stay and whatever else. So lots of people travel down, make an event of it. But yeah, they need to kind of regulate or at least manage who they allow to resell. I think using Ticketmaster as the official ticket site, I suppose it's the biggest in the world, but you can't let their sister site, you know, Viagogo, then be, you know, selling tickets 5-6 times the face value. There's got to be a face value sort of limitation on it. So fingers crossed somebody listens, because I know it even broke, the news actually broke in the US as well. I think I saw something that a Detroit newspaper and something out in the US were saying that's pretty bad actually, that, you know, the UK fan have done that. And I saw something, I don't know if you saw this, the Munich one was even worse, because obviously Tom Brady, the only chance that people in Europe might get to see Tom Brady playing in Munich, I think I heard somebody queuing up for, they had a number in front of them like 652,000. They were in the queue for a stadium that holds 90,000 people.
Yeah, you may as well log out at that point.
It's like, what's the point of sitting there? And again, tickets on there are like $3,000 on the ticket resale sites, and it's just insane, and it just drives the real fans out of the thing, doesn't it?
Does, absolutely. It puts them off as well. Like, you've had that experience. Are you really going to try again next year? But also at the same time, it also then might push them towards getting a season ticket when they don't really want to. They don't really want to.
And you end up spending more money on something that they don't really need.
Probably a line somewhere to not necessarily the real fans. That's hard, because
it's a tough one to call them, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you want people to go and experience the game. Like, you want people to enjoy it and understand why we like the game as well. So, you know, they're a first time fan. So you can't really say the real fans, but we need a way of cutting out the people who are doing it just to make a profit from it, because that's exactly what it is.
It's the scalpers, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The amount of times you've been down there and outside the stadium, you've got people, you know, 2 tickets,
2 tickets, 3, 4 sites. You just think, come on. And unfortunately, as you say, they are taking advantage of people who want to partake and learn and get involved in the game. So yeah, hopefully something that Ticketmaster listen to. I think it's safe to say that, you know, the appetite in the UK and Europe is obviously still growing. It's about time that, you know, Mr. Goodall maybe thought about giving us actually a team, because, you know, one game sells out 4 or 5 times over, then surely having a team based in the UK, it's got to be something. There's definitely a market for it, but all in all, I think Ticketmaster and Viagogo are a pile of shit. It's a bit of a convenient mute there because I may have said something. Basically, initially I was going to start talking about training camp here, because I was waiting to see. We were supposed to have Alex join us. He's a Packers fan. You know, the news broke yesterday about Metcalf and his new contract. And I was going to talk to him, but he's not joined us yet, so we'll hold off on that. How do you think training camp's going for the Jets, though? Have you managed to kind of keep abreast of anything?
Yeah, a couple of bits of good news coming out of it. I think obviously Mekhi Becton's back. You know, a lot was invested in him. He's been moved from left tackle to right tackle now as well. George Fant will continue at left tackle. Had a good year. So quite interesting that, you know, this guy who was brought in as like the building block at left tackle is now being moved across to right. But, you know, we'll see if that's the right decision. Obviously struggled with injury last year. I still believe he can be a huge pillar and someone to build around in that offensive line alongside AVT. And hopefully we'll see the best of him this year, putting those injuries behind him. It's difficult to shake that tag in the NFL. Probably one of the sports it's most difficult to shake an injury tag.
The reputation really counts hard, doesn't it? It follows you around,
Yeah, exactly. So big year. You know, if you can get even 13, 14 games under his belt out of 17 this year, then that's a win for him. So yeah, hopeful we can see the best of him. I mean, on the offensive side, you know, some you can take a pinch of salt with what the beat reporters are saying. You know, they kind of overhype and then undersell some players throughout the training camp. But, you know, seeing quite good things between the connection of Zach Wilson and Elijah Moore again this year, which is great. Really exciting potential offense, young offense this year.
You've got Zach, you've got your running back straight out.
Recent running back. Carter as a backup running back as well. not too shabby really. You've got the three receivers in Wilson, Moore, and Corey Davis as well. Obviously, Corey Davis will be taking that experienced lead role again, and then you've got the explosiveness and youth of Wilson and Moore as well in there, and then filling the gaps with the likes of Braxton Berrios and that, and then real experience at the tight end position in Conklin and Uzoma. So it's an exciting time, and it feels a little bit different this year with the Jets. Quite often it's that false dawn every year, but this year feels a little different. I'm not sitting here saying they're going to make the playoffs or they're going to have a winning record, but to improve and get 7-8 wins is probably what they've got to be aiming for this year.
You've got to be aiming for, I suppose, in a way, you've got to still be looking to be relevant late November, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that would be
500 as can.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just thinking also from your defensive side, you picked up a couple in free agency. Sauce Gardner at the back will really improve your secondary. I think he's going to be brilliant back there. And I saw that I think Salah's just picked up D Ford as well, hasn't he?
Who, sorry?
D Ford, I think. No, was it D Ford or was it Kwan Alexander? Yeah. So, and I think from when he played for us, he was full out on, and he brought an intensity to our defense that I think Salah's looking to bring across. So I think that will definitely.
Edge is looking good as well. We've obviously drafted Johnson, again a young talent, and did quite well. He was our first round pick this year. Got him in I think it was the late 20s in the end, or early 20s. Surprised that he fell that far, but quite excited about him. And then Carl Lawson coming back as well. Like, didn't get to play at all last year, and he was so hyped to sign with the Jets. So again,
those little sleepers that you kind of forget about. As you see, when people get injured and go off, but when they come back, it's like as you say, it's like you've drafted a whole new player again. So
exactly. So there's a nice blend in there, with Lawson, Mosley, Alexander. Then you say like Gardner, Johnson. You've still got Quinn and Williams. Quincy Williams, his brother, coming in, did a good job last year as well. So yeah, both sides of the ball looking really, really exciting. Obviously, Salah's a very much a defensive-minded coach in terms of that's what he did at the Niners. But there was some really exciting stuff done with the offensive side as well, with LaFleur, obviously came across with him as well. Another year for him running the OC with Wilson. I'm hopeful, So try and be as close to 500 as we can this year. That's a win in my eyes for us.
Yeah.
And definitely shows on the right path. It shows that Joe Douglas is doing the right thing as well in terms of his approach. He's not just throwing money at the situation. He's building through the draft and the right free agency. So yeah, really exciting time, and hopeful that this year's not another false dawn for the Jets.
Yeah, I suppose, as you say, it's not another false dawn because the Jets have gone through a number of them, but this one does seem like a bit more rounded. There's a bit more to. It's not just like on one person they've drafted. This is it. This is our savior. It's like, as you say, they've built the team around Wilson first last year, but now they've got more weapons for him, and it does seem like they're doing it the right way this time, rather than trying to throw money and get big stars or something and just kind of quick fixes. It looks like it's never going to be, from where you started, it wasn't going to be a quick fix turnaround, and it looks like they're in it for the long haul. So definitely good feels coming out of New Jersey for those guys. From my side, the Niners training camp's just going to be now, fortunately enough, just going to all be about the Debo contract. He's got to get done because the agent getting paid this summer. I mean, he signed AJ Brown, he signed DK Metcalf. He's making money, that guy, the agent. But if Debo gets his contract signed, I think that's the last noise, obviously, that the 49ers have got to deal with now that they've finally put to bed the Trey Lance, Jimmy scenario. That was interesting to watch from the Niners UK base. And I talked about the 49er Faithful UK group for this. That it seemed to get really toxic amongst the fan base. But the UK fan base were all like, well, we support the team. Whoever the quarterback is, we've supported Jimmy. We all watch Jimmy with a little bit of that every now and again, but he was our quarterback, and we knew that Trey was coming. We drafted him last year. We knew he was coming. It's happened before. It's not beyond the bounds of possibility that you draft a young quarterback, you sit him, and he plays the second year. Why was it such a polarizing topic for most 49ers fans on Twitter and social media? There seemed to be, you were either one camp or the other, and you couldn't be in both, and it was quite toxic to watch. And it's just something that was interesting from a UK fan side, and I think we touched on it before we jumped on, that fans in the US seem to be quite fickle at times with their NFL teams. They're not quite like the UK, and the UK you choose your team and you bleed that team's colour. That's it. That's the team that you have. That you live that team no matter who's the players. Whereas in the US, I think sometimes they're a little less invested and they're kind of a bit more following the players. It just strikes me as a bit odd.
It does, yeah. I mean, in terms of Jimmy and Trey, like who do you want as the QB? Obviously, it's been decided now, but before it had happened, who was your kind of preference in terms of that?
My preference was to give Trey the lead. You don't sell the house on a draft pick. You don't trade up. You don't go and give away first and second rounds for the next couple of years unless you are sure that that's your guy.
Yeah.
Totally get that he didn't play last year. There was rumors he was injured, but he didn't play his last year in college. He didn't know the playbook. He didn't know, there was a progression that he needed to go through. Justin Fields got thrown in at the deep end at a Chicago team that, he didn't do too well in. You might argue that yourselves, with Wilson throwing him in, Lawrence, Fields, and Jones, I suppose, they may have got the experience early, but is it a good experience for some of those guys? Was it, it strengthened them maybe, but is it also jaded? And whereas, Lance has managed to sit there and watch, learn the playbook, he's got a better, I think, all-round team around him. We're a playoff team. We should still be a playoff team just because we swapped out. If he can come in and play the game management that Jimmy was able to do when he was fit, we should be in the playoffs. I think, as you're saying, what would be success for the Jets, for the Niners, looking at the roster, looking at who we've got, looking at who we traded for, looking at the defense, we should be pushing the Rams for division champs, and we should be definitely in the playoffs. And that's not including the uplift that I think Trey brings from Jimmy. Jimmy has really great in the pocket, gunslinger sort of approach, but the athleticism that Trey brings, the ability to extend plays, maybe with his legs, get down the field a bit more, maybe a bit more zip on his arm, get it down the field. I think that gives us that little bit more. So it was inevitable he was going to do it. It just seemed that people got blinded by Jimmy got us so far, so therefore he must be, the savior. You can't knock what Jimmy done from our team. We were in the doldrums when he joined us, and he took him. 4 years ago, we were, first round draft picks was a guaranteed. We were all, we picked first. That's why we got Bosa, to be frankly. Yeah. So we can't forget that he took us from a team worst in the league, and over a 4 year period, we went to the Super Bowl. We went to an NFC Championship game. We had winning seasons. Yes, the couple of seasons where we didn't do too well, busted knee and whatever else. So he's done brilliantly for what he was brought in to do, and we've got to thank him for that. But it's the nature of the beast. It's business. Trey's there. He's sitting there. He's the fan base. Are demanding he takes over. So it makes more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those, you've got to know when the time's right to move on from a player as well. And I think, to bring in kind of UK perspective on that, someone who was really good at that in terms of a different sport and in football was Alex Ferguson, wasn't he? He knew when to move on from a player. He was always a year ahead, so wherever he's going, they may get another solid year out of him, but the decline was happening, and he knew that. And I think that's sometimes maybe not the case in the NFL. There is that loyalty to players sometimes, and not actually recognising, there's a decline coming here. And I think
just one more season will be fine. I think Big Ben was possibly
Well, yeah, exactly. Big Ben's a big example of that. It's that history, isn't it, of him and having led the Steelers and been their quarterback for such a long time. I think
one last run, and it didn't work too well for them this season. So yeah, I think you're right.
I think we're starting to see it a lot more. We look at over the last few years, like Todd Gurley's an example of that. Like Rams knew to cut their losses there and kind of move on. Le'Veon Bell sat out the year. Steelers were like, well, do you know what? That's fine. Then you're a year out removed from it, and it didn't go well for him at the Jets, and then wherever else he's been, Chiefs, Ravens,
bounced around since then, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I think he was on the Bucs at one point, wasn't he, when they won it?
Everyone ends up on the Bucs at the moment, it seems. So.
Yeah, so I'm starting to see it a lot more in the NFL, but there is always going to be that case of let's have one more ride, one last dances,
one last hurrah. Let's give you one last run at the bowl and stuff. Yeah, but I think you're right. I think cost cap has maybe changed the way things are a bit. I know it's a fluctuating target. You know, some teams can play with it a lot more than others, but I do think that has led to a lot more. You know, you don't get a one team, one player anymore. You know, you think the Niners great, and you think of the Jets players and stuff. You know, signed for the Jets, drafted by the Jets, signed for the Jets, played just for the Jets. You can't think that people, you know, not many players will do that now.
Yeah.
Because of the cap, and teams have to balance things out, have to play things around. They have to take the cheaper rookies at the positions because they can't afford to pay them because the cap hit last year and it's going to continue. I mean, it's going to probably ease off as the cap starts to increase again over the next couple of years. But I think that's why this year it's been an off season of some crazy payments and crazy trades. I mean, as I was saying about Debo's agent, he needs to go down to Duval and talk to Trent Bulk and, you know, the agent of Christian Kirk and take them out to dinner, because that trade set off a domino effect and just insane sort of money thrown around for players that initially, I mean, that Christian Kirk one, I think everyone was a bit like, he's not really
big contract.
Big contract for somebody that was, you know, a middle of the road receiver. We wouldn't say he's in the elite. So it did set the tone for, you know, AJ Brown going and Metcalf's recent one. And there's a lot of big contracts that have come out because of that, and I think it is because, you know, teams have the cap space, they can move it around and they can go with the win now scenario. We need a big star. We've got a hole to, you know, to fill, so we need to get somebody in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you know, talking about Debo, he really is the last of the dominoes now, isn't he? You know, McLaurin's got his contract, EK's just got his contract. You know, so like in terms of wide receivers, he's the one left now. Obviously, AJ got traded and got his contract. Marquise got traded and got his contract. So realistically, Debo's the last one. Obviously, we were quite heavily linked with him before the draft. And that obviously Tyreek got traded and got forgetting Tyreek as well, Devontae Adams.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, down to Miami.
And the shift in where these are playing now has been monumental this offseason. It's probably been one of the biggest shifts in terms of wide receivers I've seen since following the Jets in the NFL.
Yeah, I've never seen. Actually, you're right. I've never seen such, you know, positional star players. It's not even, you know, a standard, you know, wide receivers move here and there, but it's star wide receivers who are suddenly upping and leaving, and it's like, what does that do to, you know, going forward and everything else? So, which is great, because that leads us on to our next topic, which is going to be about fantasy football. So I know we're both of us are in the same fantasy football league, the British Lions Feeder League for the British Fantasy Football. It's kind of how we've met and how we've kind of ended up in this scenario. But I mean, it's new to me. I don't know how many leagues you're in. Are you an avid
Too many to count. Yeah, I've been doing it for about, this is my 6 seasons. The first one was 2017. I did one league only that year. Just with a bunch of workmates. We worked for at the time. Anyway, we've still got the league going. Actually, got our draft coming up in a couple of weeks. We work for Sky over here. So we've got one of the lads actually that's in our league, Liam. He's part of that as well. I think he's before you or after you in the draft at the minute.
Yeah.
So started then, and then it's just kind of increased from there. So that was originally, you know, started redraft. Then I moved the next year, dipped into the Dynasty League, and then in the Superflex leagues, Best Ball, IDP leagues, and you know, I've even this year gone one step further and doing a salary cap league as well. So we get our own salary cap, and we have to create a team from it. And a lot of the guys who are in that league are a lot of the guys that do a lot of the quite big in the UK scene. So they're with like 5 Yard Rush and the UK FFC and things like that. So it's quite a lot of the guys that do that stuff. The JGT Bowl and that sort of stuff. Yeah, they're in that league as well. So it's been great to kind of meet these guys who do quite a lot in the fantasy community within the UK and actually be in a league with them as well. It's quite a unique league as well, the salary cap. So yeah, look, I love the fantasy. It's just a brilliant part of the game. I've been doing it a long time for our football, our soccer, for our US viewers over here. So then be able to move into this, yeah, I love that. I'm a very statty kind of person. I love that sort of stuff. So being able to look at it and work it out and who I want to go for is just, I love it, mate. It's what I'm about.
I said, I mean, I just dipped my toe in it. This is like my first proper go at it. You know, looked at it from afar, and as a UK guy, it's like, oh, that's a load of stats. Where did you get all the info from? Because not really delving into it. I tried it. I mean, say that I tried it like back in '95 on a Yahoo website, and it was just like, oh, it was horrible. And you had no way of doing it because you were so removed from all the news and everything else.
Yeah.
I think obviously now with Twitter and social feeds and instant access to stuff, it's so much more, accessible for us across this, across the other side of the world to still catch all the data, catch all the analysis, and get involved. And as you say, the UK side of it is actually, growing and spinning up. The Brit Tower stuff, the UK FFC that happened just a couple of weeks ago when everyone met up in the UK, in London. So yeah, this is like, I'm just like a sponge at the minute. Everything's coming in. There's like, I'm in leagues all over the place, dynasty leagues, trying to work out what that means, and redrafts and best balls, and everyone's going, well, have you done this, that, and the other? It's like, oh, no. And then somebody went, well, why don't you set your own league up? And I thought, hang on, commission, that's like another level. I don't even want to get anywhere near that. But yeah, I just wondered, from our side, I just noticed, as I say, just started out, that because I'm in a couple of international leagues, have you found that there's a bit of a, when the UK go to sleep and the US guys are like, why are you taking so long? I mean, I've noticed a little bit of that when it's, do you think that the US guys are still a little bit, US centric when they don't realize they're in an international league when they're drafting and people are asleep because it's the time zones don't quite equate to there sometimes?
To be honest, I've found the leagues I've been in have been quite good when it comes to the draft side of things. I've not had that kind of pressure or question around what's taking so long. And I think what really helps is like you just say, oh, look, from the UK, and I'll be, times there's one league where I'm the only UK guy in it. There's 11 Americans in it.
Wow.
I just picked up an orphan team off Twitter and joined it. It was actually a Devi league. So there's another one for you where you draft college players. So like I'll just drop messages and say, look, it's this time it's midnight in the UK. I'm of course they've got work tomorrow or whatnot. It's late, so if it gets to me, I'll be making me pick in 6-7 hours whenever I get up, kind of thing as well. So I found the guys are quite good, especially when you let them know, you go to bed or whatever, what time it is. I think the thing where I kind of falls down a little bit is I think they're trying to take a little bit of advantage when it comes to like trades and things like that. That's where I'm finding.
There's a perception that we might be gullible to or certain trades. The guys in the UK, he doesn't know what he's doing, type thing, and
Yeah, I mean, I got offered one the other day. I've got Ezekiel Elliott, and I got offered to give Zeke and Darrell Henderson in return for Fournette and Chris Carson. And I was like, yeah, great. Lenny, a good player. I believe in Zeke this year, but I said, I can tell you now, Carson's retiring. Like, he's got the same injury Quincy Enunwa had at the Jets wide receiver, and he had to retire because of the neck. Lo and behold, a day later, Chris Carson's retiring from the NFL, kind of thing. So, and I said, called it you now. I was just trying to get something before he retired.
So he knew it, and he just thought, as you say, the UK guy will be the one that doesn't know the details.
Exactly, and it's just that I feel like almost like they try and get us to undersell it and take advantage a little bit. So, like I say, it's been his 6th season doing it. I know my values now and things like that. So it's that, and also the one thing that actually, as well as the advantages, they'll then send a screenshot of a trade calculator as if that's going to make me change my mind. But oh yeah, of course that's.
Suddenly the calculator says it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing like the thing that's quite quick to, or that you should be quite quick to kind of understand is that you'll have your own values for players, and not just purely from a perspective, but a Niner player will hold a little bit more value to you than what a Jet player will.
I've noticed that. I think I've noticed a couple of leagues I've drafted a Niner player and I've gone, that's probably too early, but it's Kittle or it's Devo or it's Lombardo. You're like, I'm going to go it because it is, it's your own team, and you do sort of, as the first time round, you're going to do that. Whereas I think as you, from your side, you're 6-7 years in, you've probably managed to, well, first of all, have you ever wanted to really trade it or draft the Jets early on? Up until the last couple of years, until you started to turn the corner. But you probably learn to not go with the heart so much and go with the head of the best player and what's going to get you points and stuff. So.
Yeah, and it is a bit more difficult this year with Breece Hall there. Second round in our league. It is a 16-man league, so I had a little bit of leeway with that one and taking him in the end of the second as well with the 40.
That's good. That's a good place to get in now.
Yeah, well, I thought it was quite good value pairing him McCaffrey, you know, so quite good. But yeah, it's difficult to rule head over heart sometimes, especially when you're doing when we do our home draft, we do it live redraft. We book a pub out, the top room in the pub. We do the live draft kind of thing. So it's sometimes difficult. Like last year, I was dead set on drafting Elijah Moore because I just heard so many good things about him. Doesn't matter what happens at the end of this draft, I will have.
It's all right draft day, isn't it? Elijah Moore, no matter what.
And actually Michael Carter as well. I had them both by the end of it on there, and they both played the part and did quite well. But yeah, it can be quite difficult, especially if you've got a good team. You know, if you're a team of the Bucks, the Packers, whoever, and you've got your stars on there, then it's a little bit easier. It's
a little bit easier to hide them in the bench and bring them out, especially with Superflex and stuff like that. You can kind of get the benefit there if you're up against a team where you can take advantage of. Yeah. So and just on that, I mean, you mentioned 5-yard rush and stuff from the UK side of things. Have you got like go-to analysis where you go to people that you listen to and you kind of take advantage of?
I actually listen to an American podcast for mine, big one, the Fantasy Footballers. Listened to them for quite a few years now. And I find they've got a really good balance in terms of how they deliver it and what they bring across. And obviously it's their own opinions that they'll bring across, but it's never one that they'll kind of denigrate anybody else's opinion. If they don't agree with it, they don't agree with it, but they won't go out of their way to disagree with it.
To shoot somebody else's down type thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're quite respectful of each other, but they've got, they're very, very good at what they do. And I really enjoy listening to them. They've got a good dynamic on the podcast as well. And I've took bits away from it. That's really helped me in my leagues down the years. Like I always go back to my home redraft one because it was my first league, so it always means the most here. But I've made first year I didn't make the playoffs, but the 4 years following I've always made the playoffs in it. Won it the second year, runner up third and fourth year, and lost in the semi-finals last year. And I've drafted my teams and built
taking those snippets from all of those different
and taking it on and listening and listening to who they've got as sleepers and but then also
those late round flyers that they think are going to be the high values.
Yeah, you can't just go based on purely on what they're saying. You've got to also have your own hand in it as well. So if you kind of draft it based on everybody else's opinion but yours, you're not going to like the team. So you've got to.
I've done that on a mock draft where you just kind of auto draft it and you see and you get the team that everyone says it will be best, and you look and you go, because I mean I'm lucky. I've got an affiliation with the Let's Talk Sport network, which is a UK based one that's growing really massively, and through there he's got Ryan Larson, who does Triple FTP is his handle on Twitter. He does a lot of analysis and he's been sharing so much of his info with us, and Mikey B at the Basement Brood Fantasy Football. He does a podcast and he's doing some deep dives and sharing his knowledge. So I'm just, as I say, just like a sponge trying to pick up as much info as you go into the first year. So it's good to know that those sort of available sort of resources are out there for UK fans to get involved in it. Because as you say, it does. What I found is I'm already looking forward to Red Zone on a Sunday because there'll be teams and games where I wouldn't normally bother looking in, but now you suddenly go, oh, I've got to look in for that game because I've got a player, I've got a wide receiver playing this, so it just adds that layer of getting involved more into the whole NFL and not just be focused just on the Niners teams or as you say, from not just the Jets games.
Absolutely, yeah. It's one of the big reasons I love the Red Zone because you've got that spread of games on there as well. So then obviously keep an eye on your players. Just kind of going back a little bit to who we listen and follow. I think. Obviously, I mentioned that American one. In terms of UK, there's some really good guys out there who have, analysis that they put out. So you've got things like Dynasty Island, Rich, who's got some really good analysis. The FSA tweets, Fantasy Sport Addict, he's got some really good on there. Liam, I think it's Liam is his name. So there's some really good guys. There's another guy called Matt. Matt's got can't remember his Twitter handle off the top of my name. But again. Some really good UK-based guys who are, starting to, especially within the UK fantasy community, are really big players in that, and kind of looked up to as well in terms of what they offer out. The guys, free content as well. They do it off their own back. It's potentially
just doing it to help everybody else, and there's a feeling that those, as you say, those UK guys are trying to just grow the sport and grow everyone's involvement so that everyone else enjoys fantasy football as much as they do. So they're giving that content and stuff. I mean, another one I've picked up is the Murph's Fantasy Football Playbook 22. I've gone out and bought that one, and he's super helpful. You know, he's been like giving tips and everything else, and he's part of the 5 Yard Rush, for NFL. So some great guys, really helpful, really willing to help everybody else learn to just make fantasy football a bit more fun.
Absolutely, and I think one of the bigger things as well with those guys is that they're not doing it to get likes and retweets or whatever. They're doing it because it's a passion for them, and they want to share that with the rest of the UK fantasy community as well. Whereas I find sometimes I have these tweets from American Twitter's accounts, and it's just to kind of get likes and
likes and get to draw you in, and then you go in and go, oh, a bit more info, and go, well, yes, but it'll cost you. You have to subscribe to this or do that. So.
Yeah. Whereas I find our guys so far, and I hope that doesn't change, are doing it because they've got a passion for the sport and a passion for the game of fantasy football as well, which is great. It really comes across in their writing as well when they share that with you. It really comes across. That
you can tell that they're fans first and foremost, not a business, and they love it, and they're trying to share their passion across.
Absolutely.
Cool, Con. It's been a good laugh. Thanks for your time, mate. I think it's a good time to end up there. We've covered a number of bits, and fingers crossed we get to do this again.
Yeah, definitely enjoyed it.
Cheers, man.